When people think about Sokka, they often think about his funny moments and his very animated personality, but when I think of him, I think of a very well-developed character arc with many inspirational moments that take place before, during, and after the series. In this video, I'm going to take a deeper look at Sokka's character and break down his entire timeline from his childhood to his time with Team Avatar, which includes some comics that weren't in the show. Then I'll cover his time after the series ended, and I'll finish it off with his adult life. There are going to be major spoilers for all Avatar content, the shows, the comics, and the graphic novels, so you have been warned. Now let's get started. Sokka was born to Hakoda and Kaya, who lived in the Southern Water Tribe, the place where Sokka grew up. Because the Southern Water Tribe was so small and vulnerable during a brutal war, Sokka was raised from a young age to be a warrior, and this is how he learned his expert planning skills and tactics, as well as learning how to use many weapons, most notably his boomerang, which was given to him by his father. Sokka eventually became an older brother to his sister Katara, and the two were very close while growing up. When Sokka was 10 years old, his life changed forever. The Fire Nation raided their tribe, and Sokka watched his father and the other warriors try to fight the Fire Nation off. To their surprise, the Fire Nation left as quickly as they had come, and as they went back on their ship, the 10-year-old Sokka showed his bravery by going up to the front lines and throwing his boomerang at them. Though Sokka thought it was over, this was not the case. He later found out that the Fire Nation had taken his mother away from him. He, Katara, and his father buried his mother in the Southern Water Tribe and said their goodbyes. As the war got worse, Sokka's father and the other warriors left the Southern Water Tribe to help in the fight, and Sokka was desperate to go with his father. His father told him no, however, and said a few words that stuck with Sokka for the rest of his life. Being a man is knowing where you're needed the most. Sokka tearfully said goodbye to his father, and he promised to keep Katara and the rest of his tribe safe, as he was now the oldest male in the tribe, leaving him in charge. Despite being in charge of the tribe, he still had to be watched over, and Sokka and Katara were watched over by their grand. Sokka took protecting the village very seriously, building a number of snow watchtowers, and he even began training the young males as soldiers. One day when Sokka and Katara were on a fishing trip, they found Aang and his bison Appa frozen in an iceberg, and they were shocked to find out that he was an airbender, as they were supposed to be extinct. They didn't find out he was the Avatar, who had been missing for 100 years, until the Fire Nation led by Zuko came to their tribe. Sokka tried to fight them off, but he was unable to cause much damage besides hitting Zuko in the back of the head with his trusty boomerang. When the Fire Nation took Aang, Sokka remembered what his father had told him the last time he had seen him, and he realized that the place he was now needed the most was not in the village, but with Aang to help him master all 4 elements. After getting Aang from Zuko, they went on a journey to the North Pole so that Aang could get a waterbending teacher. On his journey with Aang, Sokka met Suki and the Kyoshi warriors, and Suki put Sokka in his place, teaching him not to be sexist towards women. The two became very close, and when Kyoshi Island was attacked by the Fire Nation, Sokka fought alongside the Kyoshi warriors, and at one point even saved Suki. Before leaving, Suki kissed Sokka on the cheek and held the Fire Nation off so that Sokka, Katara, and Aang could escape on Appa. Sokka learned a lot during his journey with Aang, especially during his time with the Shang and Ganjin tribes, which actually helped him appreciate his relationship with his sister more. Sokka also showed how smart he was and how good he was at coming up with plans and even just small ideas. One day when Aang had a cold and kept airbending sneezing, Sokka came up with the idea to tie a rope around Aang so he wouldn't fly off of Appa. And later when Aang's sneeze almost got them caught, Sokka tied Aang entirely down to a rock to help protect their location. When the gang crossed paths with the freedom fighters, Sokka did not trust their leader Jed, and ultimately his distrust and his instincts saved an entire village, as Sokka evacuated them before Jet killed them by opening a dam. One day Sokka and Katara were reunited with Bato, a warrior from their tribe and a friend of their father's. While spending time with Bato, Sokka started to get homesick, but he once again remembered what his father had said, and he realized that where he was needed was with Aang, not back home. Eventually they made it to the Northern Water Tribe where Aang could find a waterbending teacher, and while there, Sokka fell in love with the chief's daughter named Yue. However, she was engaged, but their love for each other was so strong that she didn't care. During their time there, a Fire Nation invasion army showed up, and an all-out battle commenced. The chief trusted Sokka with the most important mission in his eyes, protecting his daughter Yue. During the battle, however, the moon spirit was killed, and it was clear that the only way to save it was for Yue to give her life. Sokka refused, but seeing the determination in Yue's eyes, Sokka realized that there was no stopping her. He respected her too much to tell her how to live, or not to live. As soon as she gave the moon spirit the life inside of her, Sokka caught her and held her limp body. He hugged her desperately, knowing that it was over. The woman he loved was gone. To his shock, her body disappeared and then reappeared as a spirit. She said goodbye to Sokka, telling him that she'll always be with him, and kissed him one last time before she vanished. After the battle was won, Sokka, Aang, and Katara moved on to find an earthbending teacher for Aang, and one day they ended up in a mystical swamp. A swamp that shows visions of people you've lost, loved, or that are gone, and Sokka saw Yue. Later on, the man who protected the swamp told Sokka that Yue wasn't actually gone, as he was still connected to her, because time and death were merely an illusion. After leaving the swamp, they found Aang an earthbending teacher, a blind girl named Toph. She joined Team Avatar and added a whole new dynamic to the group. One day when Toph was training Aang, Sokka started chasing Momo trying to get his food, and Toph got so mad that she earthbended him high in the air, and she refused to let him down even when day turned to night. While shopping one day, Sokka asked the girl out, and she responded by slapping him in the face. He went after her and tried to impress her, saying that he was a hero, but she still dismissed him. However, when Aang told her that Sokka was the Avatar, she became immediately interested. Aang airbended for him to make it look like Sokka was doing it, took the girl's legs out, and made her land in Sokka's arms. The girl showed Sokka off as her boyfriend to her family, and Sokka told them that Aang was his servant, which annoyed Aang. The girl's parents told a bunch of people, and Sokka was overwhelmed by a crowd that had come to see him. Sokka eventually began to enjoy it, however, but when Toph and Katara showed up, he begged them to play along, and he had Katara waterbend for him. Katara made him look dumb by making the water hit him in the head, and when he went to earthbend, Toph shot him in the air. All this attention brought the Fire Nation to them, and thinking that Sokka was the Avatar, they went after him. Toph, Katara, and Aang saved him, however, and afterwards, Sokka continued to lie to the girl, which led to an angry Aang, Katara, and Toph taking him down and exposing him once and for all. One day, Team Avatar got stuck in a rainstorm and were thrown off of Appa. Sokka and Katara landed next to each other in a forest, and Sokka's arm broke on impact. They were confronted by a few thugs who took their stuff, and Sokka came up with the idea of running to a river, and there, Katara threatened them with her waterbending, forcing them to give their stuff back. When they went on to talk back, Sokka encouraged Katara to give them a blast of waterbending, and afterwards she healed Sokka's arm with waterbending. The team eventually found themselves at an ancient library, and while there, Sokka figured out about the summer solstice, or the day of the black sun, that would take the Fire Nation's bending away, meaning they could strike them during that time. However, while they were down there, Appa was stolen from them, and the team journeyed to Ba Sing Se to find him and to tell the Earth King of Sokka's plan. On the way there, Sokka was reunited with Suki, who he did not recognize at first without her makeup, but when she kissed him on the cheek just like on Kyoshi Island, he realized it was her and was super excited to see her again. Suki helped them cross the Serpent's Pass to get into the city, and during this, Sokka was very protective of her despite the fact that he knew that she was more than capable. He acted like this because he was terrified that he would lose her the same way he lost Yue. When Suki leaned in to kiss him, the moon looking down on them made Sokka feel as though Yue was watching, so he pulled away. After they finished crossing the Serpent's Pass, Suki apologized for the night before, but before she finished, Sokka leaned in and kissed her passionately. The two were forced to split ways again, however, as Suki went back with the Kyoshi warriors, and Sokka went to Ba Sing Se with Team Avatar. While there, Sokka and the others realized how corrupt Ba Sing Se was. While in the city, Sokka joined a poetry group full of girls, and he surprisingly held his own with the instructor. However, once he began to rap and had too many syllables for the poems they were doing, he was thrown out. One day they ran into Jed and realized that he was brainwashed. Going deeper into his mind, they found Lake Laogai, and thinking that Appa was down there, they went down to see. While down there, however, tragedy struck as Jet was killed, saddening all of them. Good news followed this, however, as they were reunited with Appa. When the team finally made their way to the Earth King, they discovered that he had no knowledge of the war, and they informed him of the war that had been going on for the last 100 years. The gang then split up, and Sokka went to see his father for the first time since his father left him all those years ago to help in the war. His father was delighted to see him, and they spent a lot of time together, both being ecstatic to be together again. His father told him that he was proud of him and that he thought he was a great warrior, words that he had always wanted to hear, and he was honored when his father was going to let him fight side by side with him while raiding a Fire Nation squad. However, right before the mission, Aang showed up and told Sokka that they had to go back to Ba Sing Se, which was taken over by Azula. A fight broke out in Ba Sing Se, and they were forced to leave desperately as Aang was very badly hurt and was unconscious for many weeks. The team went to Sokka and Katara's father, and they lay low with the Water Tribe warriors. They had the Earth King with them, and after Toph and Sokka got done making fun of him for how much he loved his bear Bosco, Sokka found the bear in his tent, and the Earth King forced him to sleep in the same tent as Bosco. The next morning, Sokka showed Bosco how to be a real bear, first trying to make him get honey from a tree, but this proved impossible as his claws were manicured, something that the Earth King did for Bosco twice a month. Then he tried to teach Bosco how to fish, but when he turned around, he was using a fishing pole. Teaching Bosco about finding shelter, defending your territory, and self-defense all failed as well. But Sokka's lessons actually made the Earth King come to a serious revelation, and that was that he could not be Earth King when he knew so little about the world. The two said goodbye to Sokka and thanked him as they went off on their own to experience the world. One day, Sokka and his father got into an argument about infiltrating the Fire Nation on the Day of the Black Sun, his father saying it was a no-go. Sokka bleakly said that his father was giving up, and said that he wasn't going to back down that easily. To Sokka's immense shock, his father told him that he spoke like a true warrior, something that made Sokka swell with pride. Sokka came up with a plan to take over a Fire Nation ship. They did this by first destroying their own ships, and when the Fire Nation saw their wrecked ships, they sent word that the Water Tribe warriors were dead, and right after they sent that, they took the Fire Nation boat over, all thanks to Sokka's careful planning. They then made their way into Fire Nation territory, and while going through, they discovered that Aang was thought to be dead. Everyone else was upset by this, but Sokka made them realize that this was great news, because now they had the element of surprise. When Aang woke up, Sokka and the rest of Team Avatar split from his father and the Water Tribe, and they went into the Fire Nation to blend in. To learn more about his enemy, Sokka joined the Fire Nation army. On the first day of boot camp, Sokka was immediately put on the sergeant's bad side, and this made him volunteer Sokka to go first when learning how to ride a Komodo rhino, something that did not go very well. When Sokka got his uniform, it was too big on him, and he accidentally tripped and ripped the sergeant's medals off. As punishment, he was forced to run while carrying a heavy hog and being chased by the sergeant on a Komodo rhino. He was forced to do push-ups with the hog on his back, and he was forced to clean out the hog's stalls. While doing this, Sokka overheard some Fire Nation generals say that the new recruits were being shipped off tomorrow, and not wanting to go, Sokka snuck off the base. Sokka made his way back to Team Avatar, now an enemy of the Fire Nation for deserting. The soldiers tracked Sokka back to the cave where Team Avatar was staying, and as he was being dragged off, Sokka came up with a plan and said that he tracked benders to that cave. This ensured that Katara, Aang, and Toph could take the army out and free Sokka from being a deserter. Sokka went into the cave alone, making the Fire Nation army think he was a brave soldier, and Toph made the cave fall in as they escaped. The Fire Nation went on to honor Sokka's supposed sacrifice, thinking he had died in there as a Fire Nation soldier hero. While wearing his mustache disguise, Sokka was thought to be someone else and was forced to teach some kids, as their real teacher was unable to make it. He thought it would be a piece of cake, but as soon as he walked in, they stole all of his snacks that he had just bought. He then gave them sword fighting lessons, and one of the kids knocked off his mustache. The kid threatened to expose him, which would land Sokka in jail and reveal who he really was, meaning they would know the Avatar was somewhere near. To make sure the kid did not reveal him, he bought the kids unlimited snacks and cookies, spending all the money he had. Luckily, this made the kids have a sugar high and pass out, and when the parents came to pick them up, they were very impressed and called him a miracle worker. While in the Fire Nation, Sokka's insecurities of being the only non-bender in the group came out, and he told the others that they were all special and amazing, while he was nothing even close to that. This led to Sokka being trained in swordsmanship by the greatest master in the Fire Nation. During this, he made his own sword out of meteorite, an incredible weapon for an incredible warrior. By the end of Sokka's training, he was told by his master that he was more worthy than any man he had ever trained. One day while they were in a village, little kids came running in saying that they saw a monster, and Sokka, thinking it was just Appa, volunteered to take the beast out for a hefty amount of money while wielding his meteorite sword. When he went to face the beast, however, it was not Appa, but a giant armadillo bear. When it looked like the end for Sokka, Appa really did come out and beat the armadillo bear, saving Sokka's life. Sokka continued to plan for the Day of the Black Sun, but when it was his moment to shine and inspire those fighting alongside him, he choked and his father had to take over. Sokka more than made up for this, however, when he fought brilliantly in the fight and led the army that they had created. Unfortunately, he lost his head when Azula told him that she had captured Suki, and Sokka ran the remaining time for the summer solstice out by questioning and yelling at Azula. The mission was a failure, and Sokka was so disappointed with himself, especially because his father was forced to give himself up and be captured. Sokka, Team Avatar, and a few others went to the Western Air Temple, and there, Combustion Man went after them. Sokka used his trusty boomerang to knock him to the ground, but he didn't stay down for long. Zuko ended up saving them, however, and he proved his worth and devotion to the team. Zuko joined their group, and one day, Sokka challenged him to a duel with swords, as both of them were trained by the same swordsmaster. Sokka got his butt kicked over and over again, but he showed how much heart he had because he got up again and again asking for a rematch. Sokka gave Zuko a low blow, saying that Zuko unsuccessfully hunted Aang for 3 years, and an angry Zuko knocked Sokka's sword out of his hand, leading Sokka to take his boomerang out, which hit Zuko in the back of the head just like it did the first time they came face to face. Sokka was proud of himself, despite the fact that everyone told him he still lost. The two were on better terms when Zuko accompanied Sokka on a mission to save his father at a prison called the Boiling Rock. While there, Sokka unexpectedly found Suki, and the two were once again reunited. The mission had its ups and downs, each obstacle proving how smart and innovative Sokka was, and they eventually escaped with both Suki and Sokka's father Hakoda. Sokka was glad to have Suki around, and they were finally able to act like a couple, but they had to get serious when Sozin's comet was just around the corner. Sokka along with Toph and Suki took the majority of the Fire Nation ships down in the final fight. The war then came to a close, and when Sokka and Katara were reunited with their father, he told them that he was the proudest father in the world, and said that their mother would be proud too. While celebrating the victory, Sokka walked in on Katara and Aang kissing, and this was how we found out about their relationship, which had been building up during a good portion of their journey. One day when Sokka took Suki to a seashell store, they witnessed the owner being rude to a girl, and when Suki stepped in, Sokka warned the owners not to mess with her. Suki ended up throwing the men to the ground, and mid-fight, Sokka asked if she needed help, which she responded to with a kiss on the cheek mid-fight move. Sokka laughed at the owners as he walked out, pointing out that all of their seashells and merchandise were on fire. The two then caught up to the girl who the owners had been rude to, and Sokka proudly told the girl that his girlfriend was a Kyoshi warrior. He then recommended that Suki teach the girl some moves to defend herself. This eventually led to an entire class made up of all girls from the village, and Sokka even joined in the classes that Suki taught. 1 year after the war ended, Sokka along with Toph, Aang, and Katara went to Yu Dao after Zuko said he was keeping it a Fire Nation colony and not restoring it back to the Earth Kingdom. Sokka tried to calm the protests down, but got a rock chucked at his head. On the way back, Sokka joined Toph to see her new metal bending school, and he met her 3 students, one of which took a liking to him. However, they then found out that a Fire Nation instructor took over Toph's school, and as Toph and the other instructor were about to fight, Sokka broke it up. He said that whichever school is more efficient gets the school, meaning whichever school students wins in a fight wins the school. When Sokka asked Toph why these were the most qualified students to metal bend, Toph showed him her meteorite armband that had told her about these 3, and Sokka tragically said how much he missed his meteorite space sword, which he lost while taking the Fire Nation ships down 1 year earlier. Sokka helped Toph train her students, saying that he was more than qualified after training the kids back at the Southern Water Tribe and leading the battle during the Day of the Black Sun. Sokka drew up some plans to help scare the kids into metal bending and had Toph metal bend together a giant monster, but all it did was make the kids fall to the ground scared. Toph gave up on her students, but Sokka did not, and with Sokka's teaching, and with the students' knowledge that Toph expected them to excel, they could finally metal bend, and they destroyed the firebenders in a fight, taking back the school once and for all. Sokka and Toph were then picked up by Suki, who Sokka was very excited to see. Finding out that there was a war starting between the Fire Nation and the Earth Kingdom, the 3 of them went to try and stop it. They took over a Fire Nation tank and joined the fight, but the fight eventually came to an end when Zuko came to his senses, and a meeting discussing the future of Yu Dao took place, something that Sokka and the rest of Team Avatar were all a part of. Sokka along with Aang and Katara were summoned by Zuko to help on a mission to find his mother, but when they got there, he informed them that Azula was joining them as well, which Sokka and the others were very skeptical about. When Sokka threatened Azula with his boomerang, she shocked him and made him fall to the ground. The team eventually found themselves in a forest, and the first night they were there, Sokka covered Katara with a blanket, and he explained his nice relationship with his sister to Zuko, which Zuko of course could not understand having Azula as a sister. During their mission, they faced spirits and other dangers, but they succeeded in their mission as Sokka, Aang, and Katara helped locate Zuko and Azula's mother. A little while later, Sokka and a few others joined Aang as they went to celebrate an old air nomad holiday, but while there, they discovered a factory that had taken over the sacred land. When they got a tour of the factory, Sokka watched Toph be reunited with her father, but her father refused to admit that Toph was his daughter, which Sokka called him out on. The rough rhinos then arrived, and Sokka brilliantly herded them toward a river and brought Katara with him, basically stopping any chance the rough rhinos had of winning. After Katara took care of them, Sokka hilariously mocked and made fun of them as they were trapped in ice. Sokka set a bomb off, which led to the discovery of an illegal underground mine, and later on, Toph, Katara, and many others were trapped when the mine collapsed on them, and Sokka, realizing it was metal, got Toph's students to bend everyone out. This, however, dug up an ancient spirit, and when the factory owner refused to give it back, Sokka fought the rough rhinos, first with weapons, and then with his bare fists. Aang eventually took the spirit down, however, and the fight was over. Sokka and Katara decided it was time to go home to the Southern Water Tribe for the first time since they left all those years ago when they started their journey with Aang. When they got there, however, it was not what they expected. Their small village comprised of small tents had been turned into a giant city, much like the North Pole. They then found out that their father Hakoda was elected to run not just their village, but all of the Southern Water Tribe. They met Melina and Malik, Northern Water Tribe citizens running the construction led by Hakoda for the Southern Water Tribe's remake. When Sokka went to dinner with Katara, his father, and Melina and Malik's blueprints were stolen, and Sokka and Katara raced after the kids responsible. This led them to find a resistance made up of Southern Water Tribe citizens who didn't believe in what their father was doing. They just barely made it out alive, first dodging all of the warriors, and then narrowly escaping snow leopards. Sokka's night got even worse when he walked in on his father kissing Melina. Things then got even worse when it was discovered that Melina and Malik were planning on stealing the South's resources for themselves, which was the drive of their whole mission, and this led to a war when the resistance showed up. Sokka, Katara, and Aang and Toph, who had just arrived, protected Melina and Malik, and in the chaos, Sokka and Katara's father was stabbed. Luckily, he was alright, and plans moved forward when Zuko and the Earth King showed up for negotiations. During this, another fight broke out, and though it seemed like they won, this was not the case, as the resistance had taken the Earth King. Everybody looked to Sokka for what to do, as he was the one that always came up with the plans, and he excitedly came up with the perfect plan. He did what the resistance wanted and traded his father, but knowing that they would chi block them to incapacitate them, Sokka designed metal armor to block the chi blocking, and he had Toph's metal bending students make it for him. When they got chi blocked, just as he had planned, it did not work, but they faked falling and acted like they really were chi blocked, and when the resistance least expected it, they got up and defeated them all. After the battle was won, Sokka and Katara went to visit their mother's grave, and later that night, they had a feast with their friends and loved ones from all different cultures. Sokka and Team Avatar went to Cranefish Town, a city that was divided between benders and non-benders, something that was causing a lot of chaos. After realizing that their day trip to the city was going to be much longer, Sokka wrote to Suki telling her to come help them. After a number of factories were blown up, Sokka went into detective mode and discovered that all of the factories that were hit were owned by non-benders, and judging by the damage, the explosions were caused by benders. When Suki arrived, Sokka was so excited to see her, and they embraced each other lovingly. After Toph discovered who blew up the factories, Sokka formed a plan where they all wore disguises to go to a bender rally. This led to a fight, and Sokka was able to knock out 3 people with one throw of his boomerang. When the earthbending girl responsible for the explosions went after Sokka, Suki stepped in and chi blocked her. Team Avatar ended up leaving the rally with their leader captured, and when Toph suggested that Aang take her bending away just like he did for Ozai, Sokka and everyone else objected, Sokka saying that this lady was much different than Ozai. Ultimately, it was pointless, however, as she escaped thanks to her daughters. Sokka had a very important conversation with Aang about benders and non-benders. Aang said that he didn't like these new machines being built, and said that he missed the old days when everything was just nature. Sokka countered his point, saying as a non-bender, he did not like the old days, and he preferred the machines as it put benders and non-benders on equal footing. Later that night, Sokka and Suki were confronted by the resistance leader's daughter, who gave her mother up and wanted to help Team Avatar. The information she gave them allowed Sokka to come up with a plan to stop them. He created a maze made out of metal so that Toph could move its walls and trap the rebels in, but when the few rebels who got through came into the factory, Sokka was there waiting for them and knocked a few of them out. Toph then burst in, and when she was about to be beaten, Sokka saved her by hitting her attacker in the head with his boomerang. After the fight, Sokka listened to Aang as Aang said that benders and non-benders might never be peaceful with each other, but Sokka reminded him that Aang had bridged the gap between the two of them, a bender and a non-bender who became friends. With the help of Sokka, Aang actually did just that, and made Cranefish Town Republic City, a place for benders and non-benders to live in peace, and Sokka and the rest of Team Avatar played a huge part in its creation. Sokka also played a huge part in the city's leadership. He served as the Southern Water Tribe representative on the United Republic Council, ensuring that his original home in the South had a voice in the government. Sokka also became the council's chairman, a rather important position. It's assumed that he and Suki continued their relationship, as they were still going strong in the most recent graphic novel, but we haven't officially seen Sokka's family tree the way we have for all of the other characters. There are fan theories out there that he had kids with Toph, but that's a little out there. I'm going to stick with him still being involved with Suki, but again, that's not official, just speculation. If this ever gets confirmed or proven wrong, I'll of course make a video on it. Now let's get back to the facts. One day there was a trial for a dangerous bloodbending criminal named Yakone, and Sokka was part of the council. He gave the final verdict, saying that in his years, he had encountered rare and unique bending, even mentioning Combustion Man, and he said that Yakone was guilty of all charges and sentenced him to life in prison. This led Yakone to first bloodbend Sokka and then everyone else in the room, but luckily Aang thwarted his escape. When writing a letter to his nephew, Katara and Aang's son, Sokka told Tenzin not to focus entirely on airbending, but to develop his reflexes and focus on strategy, both of which he said were equally as important as airbending. Sokka eventually died, but not before he was able to see his good friend Aang's reincarnation in Korra, the next avatar. Sokka was honored in the city that he helped create, as they made a statue in his honor, which depicted him holding his boomerang in front of the cultural center. As of now, this is all the information we have on Sokka, but if and when his story is continued, whether it be when the next graphic novel trilogy ends, or if we get more information on Sokka's adult life, I'll make an extension of this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. You can follow me on social media to see more of my personal life and see more of this little dude. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook for Movie Flame updates. And I want to give a huge shout out to all my patrons listed below. If you want to be featured in the next video, plus get a bunch of other rewards, become a patron today. Again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you press that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great videos on the way.